Getting the flow with Stephen Puri. Getting it done so you don't gotta rush home in a hurry. Put on my focus cap. Turn on the Suka app. Close them tabs. Turn off the phone. Put on some music. Enter the zone. Find that space like in Puerto Vallarta, the Universal Hilton, a cafe in Vienna, or a space in your room with those binaural beats, or a pink noise machine and no clock to be seen, except that Pomodoro timer that be clicking away and chinging out magic coins blasting you far away into a new space with your wildest dreams, where you're making movies and other great things. Find that tenacity. Keep it going, run past rejection. Keep it practical, but ignore reality. You can do it, just get in the flow. Pull on that rope, let your boat row. You know that tug of war for your life with Mark Z, Evan, and some trillions on the other side. It's time to pull together with your new friends. Mihaly, and Near, and James Clear, and Stephen Puri, and that magic guy inside. Waiting to come out and let the world shine. This is your life. Let it flow. If you don't, you're gonna be dying in the phone. Like a rock in the river, sinking to the bottom. Putting billions of dollars in Zuckerberg's pockets. But what about you? What about those dreams? What about those great things that are yet to be seen? Don't let them die. Don't ejaculate that energy out your eyes. Let it flow out your hands and out your mouth. Helping people smile and laugh and dance. What's the world you want to live in? Who you want to be? Hop on the boat, let's get it done with Csikszentmihalyi and Stephen Puri.
Today you're going to teach us about working from home, remote work, and specifically how to increase our focus and productivity and motivation and all those good things. You have this app, Suka, which used to be centered. And before we get into that app and the features that we can use with that actual app, or we can just extract them and maybe build them into our daily life, ghetto style, tell me a little bit about you and some of the threads in your life that have led to the creation of this app.
Well, I think probably the most meaningful one for those playing at home or listening in their cars is I have a, if not unique, close to unique experience in that I've been a senior executive at a couple film studios. I've also raised over $20 million of venture and have been deep in the startup scene. So I've seen kind of the tech and the creative sides of productivity and been lucky to work with some very talented people in both fields. And there's some commonality that you see when you've worked in both. So when you ask me about focus and productivity and remote work and those sort of things, the thing that I really am grateful for is there are lessons to be learned from the patterns that transcend any particular vertical. And that's a lot what I share. I think the foundation of it, though, is this. Everything you and I are going to talk about hinges upon this, which is why. Why be productive? Why care, right? I have a thesis that we all have something great inside us. And the question of this lifetime is, are you going to get it out or not? And I think there are a lot of forces that don't want you to. And I think that's impossible to ignore in the modern world. You know, the forces that pretend to make us want to be more connected, more whole, sometimes are hollowing us out and disconnecting us.
What are some of those forces? I know we intuitively all have our own imagination of what they are. I'm thinking like, these tech apps and things, these social media apps and advertisements and some of these foods and drugs and things. But what's on your mind when you say that?
Well, Michael, it's a fantastic list. You moved to the front of the class. A+, gold star. Yeah, let's talk about some of them. So if we put aside this idea that there's something great and hopefully we're not going to die with it inside us, right? Then you look at your life between now and when you do die, there's a tug of war for your life. And on one side, there are trillion-dollar companies whose business model they used to hide and sort of duck around, and now they're very comfortable saying it out loud, which is steal your life. Period. Full stop. So when you talk about the whole set of companies that Mark Zuckerberg runs, some Elon Musk stuff, Evans stuff. The idea of someone calling you up and going, Michael, I have a proposition for you. I would like your life. I'm going to sell it to these advertisers and I will keep the money. But I'm going to give you some dancing cat videos in return. Is that a good deal? It sounds ridiculous, right? But there's a reason why those are trillion-dollar companies. They have the money to pay the best behavioral psychologists, the best designers, the best engineers to make that proposition irresistible. So they're pulling on one side of that rope in the tug of war for you. Who's on the other side? You. So if you have that belief that you have something great inside to do, you need to look at, how am I going to do it? What are the tools that will help me? What are the mental tips and techniques that, the people use, the people that we hear great things about in the world? How do they do it? And I think that's fascinating. And I love sharing that.
Well, breaking apart some of these addictive apps and things that are stealing away our energy and life and potential, what are some of the features of them that are pulling us away? Because if we can know about what are the culprits, or what are the pieces of the culprit, maybe we can avoid those things in our life through the phone or just through our general environment. Why do these apps get us?
This is something that, regretfully, Laura, my wife, and I have friends who work at some of those meta companies and used to work at Twitter and TikTok. And, when you understand how the sausage is made, it is not a careless or ill-considered set of decisions. It is rigorous A/B testing to say every rounded corner, every color, every sound, every word. How do we find the perfect word to get you? And it comes up with weird stuff. Like, for example, I was watching a video. I was working on a bit of code and I needed to learn. There was a React library component that I needed. And someone had made a YouTube video very generously about, hey, let me explain how I'd use this, right? And as soon as I watched that maybe 3-minute video, 4-minute video, at the bottom, the recommender engine in YouTube recommended stuff that was not like, oh, there's another engineering video, Stephen. Oh, here's another engineering video. No, it knew me extremely well. It said, oh, Stephen's fascinated with aviation. Here's a 4-minute video on the A380 and how its avionics work. Oh, here's a video about so-and-so. Oh, here's a travel video about Bali. I did my honeymoon in Bali. And it's fascinating when you see those to think how deep the information pool is from which they can pull to say, I know how to pull Michael in. I know how to pull Stephen in. So it is a feat of modern engineering that we understand how every sound, every ding, every notification, every push on your phone is designed that way. And there are some great tools to help you block it, not just mine. I mean, if your phone is your problem, yes, there are all sorts of phone blockers. There's like even Forest, where it grows a cute little tree. It's a simple app, it just grows a tree, but it helps people stay off it. And I think it's a wonderful thing.
Yeah. No, now it gets me scared of all the things I'm telling ChatGPT and AI like about me. I almost forget that it's these same companies, but I'm telling it like my deepest desires and wants and everything because it's just useful. But now I'm like, oh God, they can really manipulate me now.
Michael, yeah, it's all new, and we're discovering the upside and the downside together. Like, do you remember Marie Curie? I think the only person to win Nobel Prizes in 2 different fields, right? And so she's associated with discovering radiation, and she carried around on her, I think it was radium. I mean, she died of a blood disease brought on by the thing she discovered because she didn't fully understand this will kill me. She's like, this is amazing. It glows, right? She carried it on her person. And today's day and age, you're like, oh my God, radiation. There's a nuclear power plant 600 miles from my house. I'm probably going to die, right? And she's like, hey, want some polonium? Want some radium? So I think, I hope, let me say this. I hope my kid's generation, I'm about to have my first child. I'm going to have a son at the beginning of November. I hope that my kid's generation looks at us and social media the way I look at my father's generation with smoking. Where from my point of view, I'm like, how did you do that? Like, so many of your friends died of lung cancer? You have emphysema? Like, huh? And my dad's like, well, all the movie stars were doing it. It was cool. James Dean was smoking, da-da-da. The tobacco companies put out studies how tobacco is healthy for you, You can search and replace tobacco with Facebook, and you're like, okay, so kind of the same thing. We'll see as we discover, what's radioactive, what kills you.
Well, let's dig into some of the features that are on your app. I played around with it earlier. You got a free 7-day trial that doesn't make you sign anything in. Just pop in, and there's a bunch of great things in there. So yeah, maybe you can start with some of the core features that we can use with your app or without your app to help us, get into focus and flow and all that.
You said the word flow. That's a good word. I hope those playing at home or in their cars, they latch onto that word, because what we built is a flow state app more than anything. It helps you focus, it helps you do your work, but it is built on the principles of flow states. And if I may set the table, because I know some of the audience knows flow states, they're flow masters, and some maybe don't. Let me just make sure everyone's on equal footing, which is there was a Hungarian-American psychologist, Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, who had a thesis. High performers in these wildly different fields seem to describe these concentrated states they get into in very similar ways. The states where they do the thing and makes them famous and they move the world, they seem to all talk about it in the same way. And he said, I want to understand that. Like Prometheus, I want to go up, get a little fire from Hephaestus and bring it down to everyone else. And when he was done with his research, he wrote the book Flow, the seminal work on this, from whence we get the term flow state. And he said a great thing. He said, I named it this because it's the most beautiful metaphor I could find. Because it's like we're all on the river paddling to move ourselves forward. But if you align your boat with the current, it carries you further and faster. It magnifies your efforts. And that's what some people have learned to do. And that's what he spent most of his life talking about. Here are the conditions precedent that help you get into that, stay in that flow state. Here's what it feels like to be inside. And have you ever experienced a flow state, Michael? Have you been in the zone?
I think we all have, haven't we? I mean, it would be sad if we haven't.
I hadn't until my 40s.
Oh.
I was like hanging out not that long ago being like, what was that? I was on a flight and I just completely lost track of time. Did great work. Thought we had landed 15 minutes later. I made it all the way from Austin to San Francisco. No concept of time going by.
What do you think caused that? What was it about that airplane experience?
I know one of the conditions precedent that helped was I was on an Alaska flight. They operated nonstop from here to SF. And the Wi-Fi was out. So there was no, let me check my WhatsApps and see if somebody in Europe wrote something. Let me check my email. Let me check the news. There was nothing to check. And I had to do some designs. I wanted to meet with my team the next day. I was flying to SF and I was just like, okay, so on the flight, I'll mock these up to sort of illustrate this idea I had for a feature. And I had in the back of my mind that I would get there, I do the walk through the hotel lobby, grab a sandwich, go to my room, finish the stuff, go to bed, right? I got off the flight, I was done. And I really liked what I had done. And I was able to call a buddy of mine and be like, hey man, I'm in SF, I have a free night. You want to have dinner? And that was my first run-in. I had not, in my entire film career, I had never been in a flow state.
What exactly did you get done on the plane? I mean, because when I'm in a flow state, or what I believe is a flow state, I'm really immersed in one world and one thing, and it could switch into another task, but that task is sort of weirdly on that same river, so they just sort of just flow into one another, or I just break the flow state and get to another one. Yeah, because you're saying that the Wi-Fi, the problem with it is it's kind of causing you to sort of switch these tasks and switch your focus, so you can't really get fully in it.
Let's talk about flow states for a moment. So some of the characteristics are you lose track of time. You're not watching the clock. You don't get distracted. Like you sort of block distractions out. You're not thinking about, should I go to the fridge, get something to eat? I need to walk the dog, do the laundry, you're not jumping around. You're focused on a task you think is meaningful, and you're deeply in that task. And something Mihaly wrote is he said, none of the people I spoke to can get into a flow state if they don't think the task is meaningful. They're not stapling papers or doing random work or returning emails. Like you don't get into a flow state doing that. He said, you have to believe it's meaningful. Another condition that he found was you have to have skills that apply. So there's a famous Michael Jordan quote, the basketball player, who said, "When I'm in the zone, it's just me and the ball." But I think later in his career, he tried playing baseball and it was not successful. He's probably not in flow there, as opposed to in basketball when he did stuff that 30 years later is still on a highlight reel. And same thing, there's a great Picasso quote I always mangle where he says, I was up all night, I forgot to pee, I didn't drink water, but hey, I kind of almost finished Guernica. What do you think? Do you like it? And it's the thrall of being deep in something where you have skills that apply. And it's not obviously Picasso playing basketball any more than it is, Michael Jordan playing baseball. You have to be challenged, is another thing I found. Like doing something that you may be good at in a rote way, it's harder to get into flow. He said it has to be something where you actually think you're stretching your skills. And there's some others. I don't want to belabor the point, but he wrote a brilliant book really about what is it? How do you harness it? What are the conditions that keep you in it? And to go back to your question about what are things that you can use to get into flow? Let's talk about that. It's super helpful for a lot of people. Number one, music. And I'll tell you, when we set out, to make Sukkah, I'm lucky to have film composer friends who have time on their hands. So it's like, hey, there's a lot of research now. It says for most people, the sweet spot is like 60 to 90 beats per minute. So a little more than 1 beat a second. Certain key signatures, ambient, non-vocal, rhythmic music. They're always the outlier. Like, I don't know about you, but, we all have the friend that listens to Tchaikovsky or, film soundtracks or something like that. But for most people, that's it. And what I discovered by launching a whole bunch of playlists, like some lo-fi playlists, some, upbeat, down-tempo, stuff like that, is I learned about binaural beats. Have you experimented much with this? Okay, you're nodding your head. Yeah. Okay, for those at home who may not have played with binaural beats, Michael's wearing great headphones. Binaural beats are where you have a slightly offset left and right channel. So there's a difference, and your brain, and there's a lot of debate about this, but the people who believe it, that it stimulates your brain a bit to try to reconcile that there's a very, very small fraction of a second in how the ears are hearing things and the frequency, right? So some brain waves that are stimulated, people believe certain hertz stimulate alpha, beta, delta, gamma, brain waves. And I discovered this in creating, these soundtracks, these playlists, in that some people had religion for this. They're like, oh, what I really need is 36 hertz or 40 hertz. And we launched them. And you clearly have experience with this. I hadn't at the time. I was like, oh, okay, I'm discovering along with everyone else. And I tried it and I kind of felt like there was something there, but it's hard to, parse out what might be the placebo effect. I'm expecting something to happen. So there's some fantastic options for that. There's obviously Spotify playlists that are great. There's Brain FM, there's Endel. There are lots of things. So if you decide, hey, you know what? I want to try to get into flow. I want to do some great work. I want to immerse myself. Find what works for you. And it doesn't even have to be an app. It might be the sound of nature. We launched a playlist that's 2 hours of rain in Kathmandu. And it's our third most popular playlist. And it's just rain. There's nothing more to it. A friend who's an audio engineer on the LucasArts games, he was in Kathmandu and he's like, it rained, this lush rain. I recorded it. Do you want it? And I was like, why not? We'll throw it up, see. And people love it. So you got to find what works for you to create that aural environment so you can let your brain get into the zone.
Yeah, no, for me, noise and audio is the biggest component too. Like right now, I can kind of hear some, I don't know what it is, like a little kid on a crappy little plastic tricycle or someone pushing a dolly or
Well,
something.
your
And,
microphone is very good. I can't hear that.
but it's distracting me a little bit. And, any little noise humming of my computer. So if I can even get into silence, that really helps. But, yeah, it sounds like maybe some nice audio, like the music you're talking about, the rain or the binaural beats might be even better. But we all got to kind of play around with it and find the really sweet one for ourselves.
Exact experiment. Yeah. Know thyself. Do you ever listen to nature sounds? Like we ended up launching playlists of the surf in Cyprus, a stream in Japan, a lake in Canada that has these little indigenous birds. Do you ever listen to that kind of stuff?
Yeah, sometimes, but they have to be very, very simple. If there's sudden bursts of new activity that it just redirects my attention too
It's
much. Like,
distracting, right?
yeah, like of
Yeah.
course vocals, but even like a sudden, just it gets noisier, or like a bird pops in that's not supposed to be there or whatever. I'm like, just keep it keep it going, keep it looping. That's
Yeah.
what I want.
It's background. It's background, not foreground.
Yeah, even just white noise or pink noise or some of those things could work sometimes too. But it's almost a bit abrasive depending on my mood. So I don't know if I really like the pink or brown noise all that much.
That's funny. Yeah. We had requests for brown noise and pink noise, and we launched those. There are playlists that are just that. That's funny. It's interesting you know all that stuff. I'll tell you something that surprised me. When we launched the Rain podcast, the Rain playlist, and people started taking to it, one woman asked for a coffee shop. She said, I have kids now and I can't go to a coffee shop the way I used to. And she's like a blogger and stuff. And she's like, I used to write there. And I was reminded of when I was an executive at DreamWorks and Fox. I lived in West Hollywood. And there's a Coffee Bean and Tea Leaf right across Sunset Boulevard from the Directors Guild. It's known as this like writer's clubhouse. You walk in there, it's not like everyone's talking, but everyone's on their MacBooks writing something, trying to write the next great whatever, right? And there's, the guy in the corner that's written 3 studio movies this year. He's got $1 million quote. And there are tables of people who just got off the bus that are just writing their first TV spec, hoping, dreaming of success. And it was cool because that room, it had an energy to it. There were a whole bunch of people trying to do something, trying to make something great. And I remember that. So when she said, I really loved being in coffee shops, but I can't anymore. I've got little kids and, I'm kind of bound to the house, but I'm trying to continue my blogging and she had some commercial copywriting. So we found someone randomly. It's amazing what you find on the interwebs. Someone had recorded a couple hours of a coffee shop in Vienna, Austria. Okay. So we launched a playlist, Cafe Vienne. People dig it. Reminds them of back when they used to go to coffee shops and write, So you got to find your jam. That's the thing, is like you start to understand how to stimulate your brain, how to get in the zone. I mean, that's yoga for me is a huge one about getting in the zone.
And some people might benefit from that sound of the coffee shop or the environment of the coffee shop. And you also have this part of the Suka app where it's actually called to that, and you can see who's online, and some people turn their cameras on or off. And
Oh, you really know what I do. That's so flattering, Michael. Thank you.
I just, I just tried it out. I should at least try it out, right? If I'm going to talk to you.
I'm flattered. That is very generous of you to care what I do. Yes, that is correct. We have what we call the coffee shop, which is if you want to be, there's a group chat. There are people who, interact. And I had a lot of trepidation about that. I had a feeling like when we were a single player game, when none of the members knew each other, but a lot of them knew me. And I would talk to 100, 200 people. And I was like, what if they knew each other? What if they had a way of supporting each other? I brought this up with a couple of members. I was like, hey, can I chat with you? I want to bounce an idea off you. Power members, people use it a lot. What if there was a group chat? And what if there's like body doubling? You could sort of see each other if you wanted to, that sort of thing. Good idea? Or you're like wildly distracting, I'll destroy it. My mind was made up by one person. I was talking to her and I said this to her and I had some trepidation. And she just said to me, Stephen, listen, I can go to the Nike store. I can buy a pair of shoes. They'll sell me a left shoe and a right shoe. I put them on my feet. I can run. That works fine. There's a reason why 100 million people belong to the Nike Run Club. Because when you run together, you run further and you run faster and you're more accountable. And the days you don't want to get off the sofa or get out of bed or whatever, and your friends come by and they're like, come on, Michael, let's do this. And you go run, you feel great. You're like, thank you for lifting me up. And the day you do that for one of your buddies, feels even better. And she's like, you should do it. And now it's one of my favorite features in the app, just seeing people chat, post blog posts they're working on, even reporting bugs. Even people are just like, hey, I was deep in a session, I saw this bug. Great, okay, we'll fix it. Let's be a community. I think we hold each other up that way.
Yeah, no, social connection doesn't seem to be a part of these other apps, these productivity focus apps. It's just a solo activity, which I think I prefer. I was looking at the coffee shop on your thing, and I'm like, kind of, almost distracting me. But I'm sure once I get used to it, it's just there in the background. But in the beginning, you're like, oh, how many days has this guy
Yeah,
been doing
and you
it?
can flip it over. You can keep it closed and not even see it. Like if you just click the card, it flips and it's gone.
But it's great that there is a social connection component because it is one of our core features as a human, one of our needs. So there's that. But also, like you mentioned, there's that group chat where you're part of the Suka tribe or whatever, where you can report, bugs or requests or your experience or whatever, and then like you're actually replying or people from your team are replying. So it's kind of cool because you feel like you're part of the app, the development of it. You're not just this user. So that's kind of cool because a lot of times people will have these teams on the app to kind of collect the bugs and get the reports and all that. But it's like behind the scenes, and here we're peeking into the engineering side of it.
We're pretty upfront about that. Tony and I do this for free. We don't collect a paycheck for making the Suko. We just really think the world needs it. He has a daughter. I'm about to have 2 kids, and we both, I think, have a strong feeling like, how could we do something to make the world a little more mindful, a little better? I'm not going to be president of the United States. I'm not going to be a billionaire. I'm not going to sway political elections in Nicaragua or something, But if I can give people a tool, the ones who want to do something, that's a pretty good use of my life.
Yeah. Another big feature of the app and something we can use in our own life with paper or through Suka is these to-do lists. And there's a certain way that you've crafted them. Can you talk about that?
So, of course, part of being focused, and again, smart people have written about this. Cal Newport's written about it. Clear, near Eyal, like, well, good on the list, like so many people. It is about prioritizing. It's about capturing the things you need to do so you don't have to hold them in your head, because that takes energy to remember your to-do list, right? So it's good to get it out. You have to prioritize it. So something that's hard is when you get enough to-dos captured, it can almost be paralyzing when you look at like 17 things that you could do today, and it encourages you to jump around. You can like try and multitask and do a little bit of this, a little bit of that. What we did to solve that, because I have that problem, is really simple. When you start your session, when you hit play and your smart assistant says hi, your music begins, your websites and your phone are blocked, like it just becomes a very serene kind of like focused experience. When that happens, your smart assistant hides all of your tasks except the top 3. And suddenly it seems much more achievable. It's not as daunting when you're like, oh, yeah, I get that, and that. I could do that. And it helps you stay on track. And something that Mihaly wrote about was, he said, it seems like one of the conditions to be in flow and stay in flow is to get continuous feedback, which I guess for, Picasso would be able to take a step back and look at the unfinished Guernica and go, is this starting to realize my vision for what I'm trying to say about war? Or Michael Jordan look at a scoreboard or something like that, right? So what we did is we said, you know what, while you're working, we're going to give you a little live productivity graph. And as you spend time, you earn points. If you connect your phone and you don't touch your phone, you earn points. Your website, so you don't open Amazon or ESPN or whatever while you're working, you get points. You finish your active task, your top task. Great. You get more points if you finish it under the time estimate. Time boxing, which is a great technique. We reward you for that. Now you do pick up your phone, you lose 100 points. You open certain websites that you specify what they are, you lose points. And it's interesting because as you scroll through your graph, you can see every 5-minute chunk. What did you do in that time? So when it dips, you're like, oh, okay, that's when I picked up my phone. You start to see patterns for yourself. One of my patterns is I realized very often my graphs, so I went back over the last week or two, I look at them, they all dip between like 30 and 50 minutes. And I was like, what is that? And I was like, oh, you know what? There's something about hitting a wall somewhere in that time when I pick up my phone as like a dopamine relief. I'm tired. Oh, let me just have a little quick, scroll through the news, through the TikTok, through WhatsApp, through whatever, right? And that helped me understand, you know what? I can rebel against that and just say, I'm never going to pick up my phone. Or maybe I should give myself a little grace. Just say, I'm going to set my little timer, my Pomodoro break timer, to 40 minutes. Because it seems around 40 minutes is usually when I get distracted, and I'm going to take 5 minutes off. And those kind of learnings about how, your brain and your spirit and your energy work are something that we want to give people that we don't see done very frequently, Little things like that to help you learn about yourself.
It makes me wonder, like, how much more we can learn about ourselves and get things done if we're tracking our physiology and we're tracking our environment, the light and noise conditions and things as well. It'd be like, okay, that did it. But I think what you're doing is probably the biggest one. You're tracking your actions, your engagement with your phone and your computer and these websites and things. That might be enough, but maybe I'm like trying to like amplify. Be like, okay, let's check our heart rate and the lighting and all these different things.
I see those same apps that you do and the same Oura rings and then this thing. And, we're going to measure your brain waves and your heartbeat and the salinity of your skin and the electrolytes. And I'm just like, wow, so far like over my head. I just want to know, am I focused? Am I not? If I'm not, teach me why. I don't want to have to care about your heartbeat went up 6 beats per minute when you thought about math. Oh God, no, not math.
Yeah, and you can also take breaks in there. There's a little timer where you're not forced to. I mean, first you set the Pomodoro timer to like 30 minutes or whatever it is, but then you can click take a break, and then you don't have to take the full 5 minute break. You can be like, okay, I'm done with my break after a minute and 12 seconds, so let's hop back in. So there's that flexibility as well that kind of lightens the whole activity as well.
That is exactly right. Yeah, there's again, just to make sure the whole class is up with you. There's a technique called the Pomodoro technique, and it's from this guy Francesco Cirillo who said, "I used a tomato kitchen timer, and tomato is pomodoro in Italian, right? To come up with a rhythm for working, this cadence for working of 25 minutes on, 5 minute break, 25, 5. Do that. Repeat that a few times, and then take a longer break after like 2, 3 hours." And he said, I think it's a healthier way of working. It allows the brain to kind of like relax for 5 and then go back in and relax for 5. And super popular. I started doing it as we were designing this, and I was reading about all of these techniques that people embraced. And I found for myself, and you're welcome to experiment with this, I'm actually bad at 25 and 5. Like I mentioned before, my cycle is usually more like 40, 45 minutes. And if I stop at 25, I'm in the middle of thought and it's annoying. 25 minutes is usually when I'm like, oh, okay, let me get that out. And if the timer goes off to say, hey, you have a 5 minute break, then I'm like, no, you know? So I set mine to usually like 45 minutes, sometimes even 50 minutes, and then take a 10-minute break.
Yeah. And you've also talked about chronotype and there's also beyond that times of day where you work best. I've noticed that I work really well a couple hours after waking up, but then again, I get another spurt around maybe 4 p.m. or something, and then unfortunately a little late at night. But it's that morning one I think that I lean into most. And I guess, yeah, everyone's going to be different, but there might be sort of patterns across, Homo sapiens. Maybe you could talk about this whole concept and maybe as an example, how it applies to your work.
Yeah, Michael, you've done your research, man. My hat is off to you. Yes. So, what Michael's bringing up is this concept of chronotype, which is that there are certain times of day you're more adept at doing certain kinds of things. So, when you think about how your day may be spread and your tasks may be spread, perhaps you have some deeply solo creative things. I need to write a great blog post for my blog. I need to do some designs. I need to, write some code to create this new feature. And there are other things that are maybe collaborative. Hey, Michael, let's sit around and talk about like what would be a good marketing campaign this fall, or hey, the second act of the movie is not working. Let's think about what movies do we love that could be good references for us, things like that. So there are a whole host of things, and there's also, as Cal Newport would say, shallow work. I got to go pay my bills. I have to, go return emails. Blah. How you figure out the times of day when you can most efficiently do each. And there's a great story I've told about when I got into film. There was a screenwriter, this guy, Ron Bass, My Best Friend's Wedding, Rain Man, like all these movies, right? And he wrote movie star kind of roles, the kind of roles that like big stars who have many offers go, yeah, I'm going to do this one instead of those. He famously would not talk to his family in the morning. He's like, I'm not the dad who's going to be like, who wants pancakes? Did you do your homework, Michael? He's like, when I talk to you, after that point, I can't hear my characters' voices in my head. So I have to use that time, whether it's from 5 to 8, 5 to 9, whatever it is in the morning. Just completely get up and go to his office, not talk to his wife, not talk to anyone. And clearly he was so good. He was so aware of himself and so good at this that he wrote these roles that these massive movie stars said yes to, you know? And that was an extreme awareness of chronotype. And he knew in the afternoon he could have collaborative story sessions, go over studio notes, things like that. He had practically like a writer's studio that he would work in. But he knew each time of day, this is when I do that. And by the way, he didn't need an app. Nobody needs an app to figure this out. Take a piece of paper, draw a line for each day, draw a line through noon, and just jot down vaguely what you did. Oh man, I got up this morning, 8 to 11-ish. I wrote blog posts. How'd you feel? Oh, tonight I worked on some engineering work, 6 to 8. How'd you feel? You do that for 5 days, or even 10 if you're ambitious, you will see the patterns. You'll be like, all these little frowny faces, they are a guide to when I should not be doing stuff. Or, like in the morning, I have a golden period. Like you said this, I feel the same way. When I get back in the morning, my mind's sharp from like 6:30 until like 9 or 10. If I use that time as like return emails, read the news, what a waste of my brain. I could do that after lunch. I'm kind of like, well, okay, I had lunch. What am I going to do next? Man, that morning time is like, I want to write a cool blog post about flow states or, about whatever. So it's an interesting thing you bring up. Chronotypes, free brain hack.
And being aware of it sounds like awareness in general is a key. Yeah, being aware of your chronotype, but also being honest with yourself and being aware of like, what do I actually care about, and what it actually is the kind of life in me that wants to burst out. You mentioned earlier how you have to care about it and it has to be important, and it makes sense how people get into flow states often in dangerous situations like these extreme sports, because you have to care about it because you care about not dying. But you can get into flow states through work, sitting in your room on your computer, if you really care about the thing. So I have my to-do list. I call it open loops because these each thing on my list is just looping in my brain nonstop until I close it. But there's some things on there that have just been in there for for a very long time, and I procrastinate. And then I started looking at these recently, in partly in preparing for this interview, because it kind of sparked my focus on these to-do lists. But then I noticed, like, what is it about these things? Why am I not getting them done? And I noticed a couple features of them, and then you might have a bunch more of certain features of our tasks that why they don't get done or why they get put off. For me, one big one was, yeah, it's a common one of it just being too big and it's not broken down into a clear task. But the bigger one is I just don't actually care about it. I don't actually want to do it, and it's not important to me. Like, I had things like make these Instagram clips of all these podcast episodes, and if I hate Instagram and I hate short clips, I hate short content. So like I just like deleted the whole thing off my task. I don't have to make Instagram clips. Who cares? Or I have to put the email subscribe button onto my website and make newsletters for all the people to get the subscribers. And yeah, I'm supposed to care about it, but for some reason, that's not the life I want. I mean, people can communicate with me through, like, I don't know, YouTube comments, or my email's michael@brainshaman.com if you want to email me. I don't know, but that's not the life I want. And maybe I just don't care about that side of the podcast enough, and I should, but I don't. So I just deleted those things off my list, and my list is getting shorter. And then, yeah, you have to care about it. You have to care about it enough. So those are a couple of things. What are your thoughts on this, or other things that you've noticed getting in the way of you checking things off your open loops, your to-do list?
Well, I'll tell you, to be very open about myself, there were two big problems that I needed to solve. One I called the cold start problem, which is, hey, Michael, tomorrow morning at 9 a.m., I'm going to get going on XYZ. But at 9:15, I'd still be returning some emails that weren't super urgent. I'd be scrolling the news at 9:30 and then kind of get going. And the price for that, the pain, I wouldn't feel until the end of the day, when it would be the, oh man, okay, well, after dinner, I've got to pick this back up and try and finish the thing, right? And when I looked at that, when you do like the 6 whys, well, why do I feel this way? Well, because this morning I procrastinated. Well, why did I procrastinate? And you go down that why. What I found at the bottom of it was something you touched on a moment ago. Either there was something on my to-do list that was so big, I'm like, I can't make a dent in that. Like, write my book, or, or something of that nature, where you're like, that's a goal, And we really want, and this is what we ask our smart assistant to do in Suga, is just say, hey, man, like, break that down for me. It's like, well, you wrote the outline for chapter 1 and 2. How about this morning, just outline chapter 3? That should take about 30, 40 minutes. And you're like, oh, okay, that's kind of doable. It makes it less of a daunting thing. Or the other thing is having so many things on there, it's paralyzing. And we talked about, we just look at it, you go, ugh. And we solve that by saying, okay, when you start your session, just prioritize the 3. We'll hide the rest. Just do those 3. It's going to feel great. And then if you have energy, do more. But just start that way. So that cold start thing in the morning, that's how I solved it. And the other one was straight up distractions. And I don't know if you clearly tried Sukha. The way we solved it with Sukha is we said, okay, phone. Phone is a big one. When I start a session, when the music starts and the smart assistant says hi and all that, show a QR code. All I have to do is tap that with my phone. When I put my phone down, start working. If I touch my phone, my smart assistant knows and says, hey, Steven, is your phone helping you? And it doesn't stop me, but it gives me that one moment to say, who do I want to be? Do I want to be that guy at 6 o'clock who's like, hey, Laura, let's get out of here. This is great. Or do I want to be the guy at 6 o'clock who's like, okay, we got to keep dinner short. Jerry always talks late. I got to get home tonight and finish this stuff. And like, I don't want to be that second guy, So it gives me that little pause. The same thing with websites. You specify which websites bug you, you get a little nudge and you just go, okay, do I want to be the guy who wasted my time watching A380 videos on YouTube? Or do I want to be the guy who's like playing with my kids? Because I'm going to have kids soon. I'm excited. So those are my 2 big ones, the procrastination, which is often overwhelm, and distraction. And I understand how well these apps know me. They know just what kind of carrots to put out.
And a lot of people do have big dreams of making big things like movies or writing a book or creating a company or something. I imagine that most people have something like this in their mind and it's just been sitting there for decades or at least many years. You've worked in Hollywood and you've seen people actually complete these movies and get these big things done. They wrote that script and they directed and released this movie. They made that soundtrack, everything. So you've seen the success side of this. And I'm thinking, looking at, since you have that sort of a window into that world of how people actually did accomplish big things, comparing that to maybe people you've seen who've not, why are they able to? Because I have these things myself too. I would love to, do like a lot of these things. We all would, but we don't. So how do they do it?
Oh, I can answer this one. This is a good question. That is one of the best questions I've gotten in a podcast. Here's the deal. If you had asked me when I was a junior executive coming up through the ranks, who's going to be successful? You've read hundreds of writers, met hundreds of directors. My friends and I were voracious readers and really, doing very well. We would have pointed to the wrong people because I thought then that the determinant was talent. I'll tell you this, the Austin Film Festival is not that long ago here, where I live. A number of friends from the film days emailed me, texted me going, hey man, my film's premiering, come to the thing, my TV show's premiering, come down, right? So we went down. And I'll tell you, the ones who are in it now that have made it to the point of having premieres, having TV shows on the, networks, they are the ones who are tenacious. That is the common element, not the ones who are talented. A lot of the talented ones got discouraged. They got to know. They got to pass. It hurt. They stopped. And strangely, the ones that, like we're here for the film festival, are the ones that even, they don't have to reach out to me. I just hear through the zeitgeist, oh, so-and-so made a movie. They are the ones who could take a no and say, okay, how do I get a little bit better? And go on to the next. Just tenacious. It is something I'm definitely going to talk to my kids about, going, you are going to get so many no's, even if you're talented. And it's a question of how do you process the no and keep moving forward. So I think tenacity, period. Tenacity is the answer to your question more than talent.
It's interesting. It's like this weird balance of taking the reality of the facts of I can do this, I can't do this, I will succeed, I won't succeed. There's so many reasons of not continuing with something or not starting something because the odds don't look good. and then just doing it anyway, almost being a little bit oblivious to the reality and just like having that sort of reality distortion field in some way, because there's lots of things like, for example, that the facts say maybe you shouldn't get into it, like acting right now. If someone wants to be an actor right now, there's all this like stuff saying, oh well, Hollywood's falling apart, etc. Or there might be something about, I don't know, the economy telling you shouldn't make your startup right now, or you have to do an AI startup. You can't don't do virtual reality, don't do this or that. You have to make an AI startup because that's what the data shows. So it's almost like you ignore the data and you just do it anyway. But how much do you balance between like looking at the reality of the world of like, this is where the industry is and the economy is, and these are my odds, and the calculating things, and then just, I don't know, following to something inside of yourself that doesn't even know about all that, and you just do it anyway. You're like, oh well, the odds say I should not be an actor, or I should not make this kind of company right now, but I'm just gonna do it anyway. I guess there's risks either way, but
I have a question for you. If I had a magic coin, I was like, this magic coin, you get one of them, Michael, and this enables you to realize one dream you have for yourself. What would be the one dream?
ooh. To be honest, I mean, I'm not just like saying this because you are kind of one of those people, but it would be making something spectacular like a movie or something like that. It would be
Okay.
either being a part of it, like I'm so it's again this flow state, being able to be so immersed in this role of like I mean, I'd probably want to be the writer or something. I'd want to be a writer for something big like that, or it could be a book. But I think the movie, there's something about the movie. It wouldn't just be any kind of movie too. It'd be maybe making comedy movies. That's what I would do. If I can do anything, I would make comedy movies. Yeah, which sounds like what? You're doing
Interesting.
this podcast right now. So there's this intellectual side of me, like who loves philosophy and science and all that. But this other side, maybe it's because I haven't gone down that path enough yet. So I'm so curious of what would have been. I feel like I could do it, and maybe once I try, I might be like, no, 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 that's not it. But I mean, I have to try. So I think there's just something telling me for a long time, try to do this. And so maybe I do try a little bit in like, a little bit in this podcast, but it's not in the interview part. It's more like in the side things where I'm alone. I feel like in a podcast like this, I'm not allowed to like completely goof around. It's just, I don't know, unless I'm with the right person. Maybe it's a comedy podcast or something. And I'm not saying I'm funny, but the act of laughing and playing and having this silly scene, this crazy world, is just the most satisfying thing. Whether I do it in real life with my brothers or friends, or you do it as an actor, or through the page, through writing. You're writing this and maybe filming this just insane scene that just makes you and everybody laugh. So like, I just want to laugh more, really.
Okay, so now we get to it. So there is something core to who you are to say, I think there should be more laughter in the world. I would be very happy the guy who brought that, right? Okay, so what are you doing to realize that?
Nothing really, because I mean, one, I'm in Japan, and I feel like that maybe that's an excuse or some sort of obstacle. But I'm thinking this might just be an excuse. But I'm in the wrong place. How do I do that from Japan? And you probably got some counter examples or some ways around that. But maybe there's that, and then maybe it's a money thing. I feel like, oh well, I need to quit this or that job to have the money and time to do it. And it's also just lack of awareness of what's the next step. Like, where do you even start?
Make one person laugh, right? As much as we can rail against social media, and I do, there are distribution channels now with zero cost. If you have something really funny, whether you were just doing stand-up, it's just you and the power of the word, or whether it's sketch comedy, like look at how many of the YouTubers right now came out of Vine. Remember Vine, the little 6-second short thing? Logan and Jake Paul. Some of those guys that came out of that, and the ability for you to say, okay, so my kind of comedy is X, and maybe that fits into YouTube, maybe that fits into a reel or a short or a TikTok, or being in Japan, I don't think is a hindrance that it once was. Like 20 years ago, yeah.
But the problem too, and I don't want to make this too much about me right now, but it's a good time for me to think about it.
Oh, let's make it about you. I love it being about you.
Yeah. The problem is, I think for a lot of people too, there's not just one person they want to become. There's 3 or 4 different characters lives that they would like to live, and then they seem conflicting. It's like you have to choose between who do you want to be. So one part of me wants to be that. Another part of me wants to make this brain health technology VR company thing, like get into details about that, but there's like this entrepreneurial side of me. Then there's like this part of me. I went to Chiang Mai recently with my brothers, and we found these tree houses, and we were just in these tree houses for like a week, and like I was just out in the nature. And I was like, I could just not be productive at all, and just live in these trees for a while. That sounds good too. And then this podcast too, I like learning about reality and learning what it's like to be different kinds of people and how we can change our own brain through different actions or just ideas and things. So there's a bunch of different things we like, and that's sort of the problem. Is like you have to choose, and I guess the momentum is bringing me into this podcast right now. But maybe I can, I don't know, try something new. But this isn't really a question, but how do we? It sort of is. How do we choose? How do we choose between these different sides for ourselves? Or do we have to choose, or what's the solution to that?
What you brought up a moment ago, I think, is very germane to this, which is yes, there are many people who counsel, children, dream and realize your dreams, all right? And there's also a practical aspect where sometimes your dad is like, dream all you want about being a street artist, but could you go to med school? Like, and there's a reason for that. It's not that I don't think it's for the reason that your parents want to torture you or destroy your dreams, but there is a practicality of, you do learn and you see pain as you age and you see people who maybe made mistakes, and you look at the people you care about the most, your own children, and you say, oh, let me just give you some advice. Like, don't go down the road that your uncle did, who, is living in a trailer now. Like, you have to balance that. So if you want to be a great artist, or take some big gamble like that, you'd be very considered. I mean, it's funny when you think about, some of the people we call artists right now that go out of their way to hide the family money that allowed them to gamble and be an artist. Like that guy from Maroon 5, the guy that's on the TV show. His dad owns M. Frederick, the chain of clothing stores, and he never talks about that. Like Spike Jonze, the director. His name is Adam Spiegel. His dad owns a Spiegel catalog, but he wants to be known as like a skateboard kid from the streets, So there is a bit of like examine your role models and make sure that they actually are who you think they are before you go be skateboard kid and you'd realize your dad didn't start the Spiegel catalog to fund you.
Well, back to the focus stuff. Maybe that's a little easier to focus on right now than where to go with my life, but that's good too.
Sure, okay, as you wish. Crazy talk, but okay.
Oh, or we keep going in with this, but that's maybe that's the thing. It's like you're scared to keep looking into that potential brightness / darkness, and you're like, let's just wake up and get back to my ordinary reality. But I guess to close that off, though, maybe like what are some other sensory gateways or whatever besides from the sound that we can use to enhance or reduce our focus?
Space is a really good one, and I'll tell you how I first saw that used. The idea that physical spaces influence how you settled in mentally. When I was coming up and I was working with Roland Emmerich and Dean Devlin, right, and they'd come off Stargate, they were going to do Independence and all that, I learned that they had a vacation rental that they would rent when they needed to write down in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico. Some beautiful white marble villa in the hills, the pool and the whole thing. I've never been there. And I asked Dean once, what was up with that? And he said, oh, there's a room there. This beautiful light comes in the morning over the pool. And when we're in that room, we never think about our agents or, casting difficulties or studio budgets or the notes we'll get. Roland and I just think about like, what's the movie we'd like to see? He said, that's really, really magical for us. So when they had to go off and write the next one, I remember Roland asked his assistant Joey to rent the villa. And she said, it's rented. And Roland was like, what? And he called his entertainment attorney, this guy, John Diemer, who's an amazing guy. And he said, John, buy the villa. By Monday, Roland owned a $5 million villa in Puerto Vallarta. Where those renters went, I do not know. But they went down there and they wrote for 6-7 weeks. They came back with a script that became the third highest grossing movie in film history at the time. That was important for them to be in that physical space that helped them get in that mental space. And it doesn't have to be like a $5 million villa. I saw the same thing when I was at DreamWorks. I was working with Alex Kurtzman and Bob Orci, who were writers. They wrote, Transformers 1 and 2, Star Trek 11, like Mission Impossible 3, Zorro, Island, all sorts of stuff, right? And when they got in crunch time, they had their assistant rent them a room at the Universal Hilton, which is across the street. DreamWorks is in the little Amblin compound on Universal Studios lot. Across Lancashire, there's a hotel that I'm just going to be very blunt. It's where you stay with your 3 kids the night before you go on the rides at Universal. You don't seek out this property, right? But they would go there for a couple weeks at a time. And I was like, they're both making $1 million plus per script. What is possible? Why wouldn't they go somewhere nicer like Roland Dean did? And then it occurred to me, they had trained their minds back when they met in school. And that Universal Hilton, with Kurtzman sitting on the edge of the bed with his laptop and Bob at the little desk on his laptop, that evoked dorm room. That brought them back to that period of time when they were like young writers who had to prove that they were worth it and they were going to have, something to say. So that association of where are you working? How does it affect your brain? If you're working remotely, absolutely. Find a place where you routinely do the same kind of thing. I have an office in my home where I write, whether it's code or blogs, whatever. And when I enter here, my brain just kind of falls into, oh, okay, I know what I'm doing here. This is that room. It's like you walk into a spa on a massage table. Your brain kind of goes, oh, okay, this is where I unplug. And I just like let that happen. And it's free. You don't need anyone's app to do it, but you just have to be disciplined that you don't say, oh, well, I'll work from the kitchen for a while. I'll sit on the sofa and write down there. I'll bring my laptop to bed. Those kind of things take that tool away from you.
Okay, so like the consistency in the purity of the space, like this space is only for this, and this is the only place I do this, and it might not necessarily be what others might say is the ideal space, but somehow it works for you. This person works in the cafe. This person works in the Universal Hilton. This person, I can imagine the Porta Vallarta villa sounds pretty nice to all of us, I'm sure, but it doesn't have to be that.
Yeah, must be nice. I've never been invited.
Yeah.
I'm sure it was lovely. Right?
Yeah, but it also sounds nice that you were making all these big famous movies, and some people might be surprised or confused of why would you stop that? And yeah, this app is great, but I mean there's lots of these apps, and for the ego at least, or for other things, a lot of people would stick with the movie thing, but maybe they haven't been in that industry, so they haven't seen the dark sides either. So what kind of led you out of it and into this?
Well, I think yoga was a big part of it. Definitely when I was making the transition from DreamWorks to Fox. And DreamWorks is a studio I have a lot of respect for. It's the only studio still run by a filmmaker. And there was definitely a sense of, hey, go home tonight and try and make your projects 1% better. And when I went to Fox, which was News Corp, there was more a sense of like, go home tonight and make your projects 1% cheaper. And it is a business, like, style comes from the top. My boss, who was the chairman of Fox Filmed Entertainment, reported up to Chase, reported, Rupert and all that. And was very clear that this was show business. This was not show art. So, people sometimes ask me like, oh, hey, you were the studio executive over Die Hard 5 or the Wolverine sequel or stuff like that. And it is super fun and it pays well and you get to meet a lot of people and all that. I'm not going to discount that. But you're just the guy or the girl in the chair for a couple of years. There was someone in the chair making Die Hard 3 and 4, before me. And there'll be people making the Wolverine movies for 50 years. And you just kind of like, you're there for a while to make sure the packaged soap goes out on time, right? And Die Hard 5 is a horrible script. And we made it because Bruce had a window of time in his schedule to do that. And, my boss is very clear. He's like, as long as the poster says Die Hard, I can tell you how much it will make. This many people will go to see it. This is what our return will be, the rental on the film. If you make it for less than that, great, we keep our jobs. So if you want to swing for the fences and do something more, you put all of our jobs at risk. And I'm not going to get fired over Die Hard 5. And I understand that logic. That's very sound business logic. And it is not the way I wanted to wake up and be 40 years old or 50 years old, making Die Hard whatever, being like, cool, Die Hard in the retirement home. Let's just try and find a way to crank out one more Die Hard movie, and that I had to get out. All my friends were making Ant-Man 5, and they were shooting Ant-Man 1, but they had scripts far into the future. And they're just so formulaic. I was like, is this really a thing? Is this what at the end of your life you can look back and go, oh, thank goodness I made Die Hard 5, 6, and 7.
So yeah, that information helps too. Now maybe I'll scratch that little making movie thing and instead like follow. If I do go down that path, do it the solo style, the ghetto style, right? Just go on and make YouTube videos and things like that. And that might be more fun than jumping into an industry full of that.
The less money you spend, the more agency you have, the more risks you can take, and it is true. You get in a studio system, and there are some great studio chiefs. Like Bob Iger is someone I have great respect for, like a man of integrity who navigated really creative industries, between the TV stuff, the film stuff, the theme parks, like cable, like streaming. He juggled some stuff and made it look easy. And major acquisitions. Think about negotiating with Steve Jobs for Pixar and Lucasfilm with Lucas and buying Fox from Rupert and the Marvel stuff, And there is a way to make those films where there's something more inspiring than, hey, do you think if we mashed together the Alien and the Predator franchises and we did Alien versus Predator, is that an idea? Could we make that? Would anyone see it? And you're like, are you inspired to make that? Would it make money? Then I'll be inspired. It's like, oh God, good luck. Ooh.
So when it's not about the money, it's not only about the money. Then I guess the better art or the better movies seem to come out.
Yeah, and there was definitely a shift when I was in film. Was when a number of distractions became so acute that the box office was going down. The number of tickets sold was going down, even though the price was going up to try to balance it out. Like fewer people are going because they're playing video games or on social media or anything. And cable and TV got really good, So you sold fewer tickets. The theaters started charging way more for a ticket to make up for it. And now, if suppose you wanted to make a great comedy movie, you could do it very inexpensively. You could distribute it. You could get attention on YouTube or TikTok or, a number of places. And if it hits a chord, if it resonates, there's something there,
Earlier, you asked me this question that I think everyone feels really, really good when they're being asked this question for some reason. At least I did. You kind of just light up with electricity when people ask you this, like, "What if you could do anything and nothing was stopping you? What would you do?" So now, sort of my turn to ask you. You've probably asked yourself this question already many times, and that's led to the things you're doing. But I mean, if I had to ask you now, maybe the answer is just continue what you're doing. But yeah, what would you do if if there were no limits?
If there's no limits, because what I'm doing right now is the thing that I believe is the best thing I've done in my life. The thing that I would love, because I'm not a great marketer, is I would love to use that magic coin to say, help me to become someone who could share this with the world. That would be awesome to say, wow, people around the world are doing something with their lives because of this.
And you're gonna have a kid pretty soon. That's gonna be your first kid, I believe. That's gonna be a big change for you. How do you imagine that might change your focus and productivity and flow? And what are some sort of steps that you might be taking or thinking about taking to transition to that new little world where there will be more distractions and things?
To put it mildly, a number of the members of Suka have DM'd me on the side to give me their tips on how to conserve my energy and my time, because they're like, it's going to be a whole new world when you're so in love with this little being and they need all your attention, all your time. And the moments that you do have in between feedings, in between burping and, everything else, changing diapers, you need to make great use of that. And happily, I make an app that helps you make use of your time. So I'm hoping that Suka serves me the same way it serves other people. This time is going to be the scarce thing.
Yeah. And if people want to get Suka, try it.
Yeah. So if someone wanted, I guess there are two things I can offer. One is just my email address. If anyone has a question about something you and I talked about, and they're like, oh man, Stephen, I'd love to learn more about Cal Newport or about time blocking or about, brain neuroscience or just whatever, drop me an email. My email address is really simple. It's Stephen, Steven, at thesuka, THESUKHA.co for company, not COM, CO. Tell me what it is you'd like. I'm sure I can find a link to something you can read or watch that may help you on your journey. I'll happily do that. I reply to all my emails in 24 hours if I'm not sick or traveling. It won't be a long email. I'm not going to write you the story of my life. Not that you want it or, that I have time to write it, but I will get back to you, something helpful. And if anyone wants to try going to a flow state, that's what I'd say. Find something you need to do. Find an actual task that's meaningful, that would take half an hour, 2 hours or something to do. I'm going to write a blog post. Go to thesuka, THESUKHA.co. You can sign up, and what would it take you? 20 seconds to sign up, just email address, first, last name, and just try it. There's no credit card. If you don't like it, you'll never get billed. But if you like it, make it a habit. Make it a thing where you do it each day. And it's like a muscle where it just becomes that beautiful place where you do great work. And you'll see the same people pretty much all the time. It's really nice.
You can message them too, I noticed, which is also a cool little feature of that. Like, this is a new kind of. It's not a social network, but it's slightly social. You can meet cool people, and there are people who are doing
designers. Yeah, designers have met each other and DM each other. I know there are a bunch of writers, there are a bunch of developers, and I can't even see their chats, but I know that now people have one-on-one conversations because they're like, "Oh, I saw you posted this blog post. I'm a blogger." That's awesome. It's a community. It's a community of nice people. I'm very proud of that.
Well, I guess a final, a basic question. What are some books or resources or general things that have influenced you in all this, and that you think if people like this interview, they might like these books or these YouTube channels or whatever?
Okay, I will give you 3. We mentioned Flow by Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, and that is just a great work. It's not super prescriptive. It's not like, buy this course and then use this technique, do this thing. It's more a book about how flow states work and how high performers interact with that. So it's a super cool one. You can just read like for a couple minutes at night for a week. Cal Newport's Deep Work is obviously a very important book in this space, and the way he talks about shallow work and deep work. And Cal walks I've actually met him. He's not a friend, but I've met him, and he's mentioned us on his podcast, Deep Questions. And he's a dude who walks his talk, man. Like, he's not all over social media selling his garbage. It's pretty impressive what he does and how he does it. And I respect that. And then another one who's really smart about internal and external triggers and like how do you find traction as opposed to distraction is near Eyal, who's, written books, Indistractable and stuff like that. And that's probably another one to read where he is a good counterpoint, and he is more prescriptive than Mihaly and somewhat Cal. So those are 3 good ones to start with, but there are, again, many, many, many good ones. On the creativity, I'll give you a 4th one, which is there's a book, The Net and the Butterfly, that's about the neuroscience of creativity. It's Olivia Cabane and Judah Pollack, and pretty insightful. You have those moments where you're like, oh my God, I've done that. That's happened to me. And they explain why using neuroscience. I was like, well, that's pretty cool.
And your apps kind of combined a bunch of these features from other individual apps. Like you have Brain FM for just the music, or you have Todoist for just this. And you've kind of combined all these into one thing. So there might not be an answer to this question, but are there any other apps or technologies that you use that you think other people might use and like in conjunction with Suka?
That's such a great question. I appreciate that you see that we wanted to have one place that gave someone all the tools. So you didn't have to stitch together this timer with that to-do list, with this productivity measurement. There's just all there. I appreciate that. I'll tell you, you actually, if you're really dedicated, if you are not going to die with that great thing inside you, if you have decided that, you could do everything you need with a piece of paper, a pencil, and the timer in your phone. That's it. It's about intention. It's not about the tool.